Saudi ties. And to break all of this down, what this defense pact could actually mean for the region, we are joined by Natalie Ecanow, research analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. All right, Natalie, what do we actually know about this defense pact, and how significant would this defense pact be? Is it a real shift in U.S. security commitments, or is it mostly just symbolic?
So right now, the exact details of the security agreement are still being shaken out. Not much has been reported in terms of the specifics. I think the key thing to understand with this defense agreement is that it is most likely not going to be a legally binding treaty that would require approval from the U.S. Senate. It's most likely going to be some sort of an executive order modeled similarly to how Trump guaranteed the Qatari security last month after the Israeli strike in Doha. And that executive order for Qatar really committed the United States to defending Qatar against attack, but it stopped short of a formal NATO-like commitment. So extending a similar offer to Saudi Arabia would be significant. It's just not to the maximum degree possible that the U.S. is capable of through that formal treaty.
What is motivating MBS to push for this now, and how does it tie into his growing regional ambitions?
Yeah, so a U.S. defense pact has been on the Saudi wish list for a long time. In recent years, it's been part of those discussions about Saudi-Israel normalization. Normalization talks obviously took a backseat after October 7th and over the course of the war. But now that the war has sort of subsided and the intensity of fighting in Gaza has decreased, normalization is once again back in the spotlight. And with that comes the discussion about Saudi-Israel or Saudi-U.S., a Saudi-U.S. defense treaty. And then I think also just MBS is positioning himself even more so, not only as Saudi Arabia's next king, but as the leader of the Arab and Muslim world. And securing this commitment from the United States would really be a significant validation of his leadership and rulership.
Now, of course, the big question, especially for our viewers, is how Israel fits into all of this. Could this deal revive normalization talks or add new pressure on Netanyahu to actually move toward Palestinian statehood, which is obviously, what we've consistently heard from Saudi Arabia. They say there's not going to be a deal until there is a, recognition of a plan in which we'd see a Palestinian state.
Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, this defense pact or security commitment, whatever you want to call it, to Saudi Arabia has always been part of the discussion about normalization. The Biden administration really held firm to the notion that any sort of defense pact or security commitment should be tied to normalization, and which is part of the reason why we saw the Saudis eventually sort of give up on the United States and sign an agreement with Pakistan. I think Trump should toe the same line and stay committed to normalization, tying any sort of defense agreement to the future of normalization. If he doesn't do that, that would be a significant weakening of the standard that the previous administration set. That said, there's always the possibility that normalization talks are making progress behind the scenes, and we just don't know about them quite yet. And so I think that's really, the main message moving forward is that normalization and a defense agreement should be part of the same conversation.
All right, Natalie, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. Very interesting to hear your take on this. I'm going to turn back to our guests in